Blades are used in many different occult practices for either ritual use, magical use, or mundane practical use. The types of blades used can vary, but will most often be a knife or dagger, athame, bowline, or sword. The blade is associated with the element of fire, and it represents strength, power, the masculine force of nature, and has the power to subdue and banish malefic entities or spirits. Several traditions recommend a blade specifically for use in ritual or magical practice should be forged by a blacksmith. Blacksmiths had a special role in ancient beliefs because they were believed to be custodians of the secrets of chthonic forces. It's best if the blacksmith is knowledgeable of ritual forging, which should be done on the night of the full moon after midnight when the veil is thinner. Most, if not all, traditions, practices, and magical systems feel the blade, regardless of type, should be consecrated before using. Some will use the moon's light and energy along with water. Others will use combinations of fire and water. Some practices, such as with Luciferian magic, also like to do what's known as tempering. This involves heating the blade of the knife on coals and then dipping it into a distilled water infusion made with herbs ruled by Mars. Magnetizing the blade is another process performed by other practitioners. For some practices, this is optional, while for others it's required. This is done by rubbing it with a lodestone or a magnet. Burying your blade so that it's surrounded and charged by the earth is also an option when prepping your new blade. Lastly, carving or drawing symbols or sigils is usually done to personalize the blade to the practitioner. Some traditional witchcraft practices won't allow any metal into sacred space because of the belief that metal interferes with earth energy at sacred sites and power centers and disturbs their guardian spirits. Instead, they may use ritual knives with handles made from wood, bone, horn, or antlers, and the blade may be of obsidian, copper, bronze, or flint. This belief is echoed in fairy folklore, where fairy folk are known to not be able to bear iron, so that's what's used if needing to banish them. Steel or iron is a preferred material for many if the blade is for magical defense or attack. Steel or iron symbolizes fire and destruction. The knife or dagger is one of the primary magical tools used by practitioners of traditional witchcraft and folk magic. Originally, the ritual knife or dagger was a sacrificial tool used in ancient times to sacrifice animals, and sometimes humans, to their deities. Today, it might be used to cast circle or to concentrate the bread and wine in the husil, which is a West European traditional witchcraft term for the sacred communion performed after a rite. The knife or dagger can also be used to project psychic energy to your desired goal and to banish malevolent spirits. Many occultists own more than one knife depending on its use. This can be for either ritual work, spell work, or mundane practical tasks related to the practice. Depending on the tradition, the culture, the magical system, or the religion, blades are known by many different names. For example, in the Scottish traditions, the ritual knife is called a jagddirk. Ritual blades for Wiccans and ceremonial magicians are known as athames. In Balkan witchcraft, which are witchcraft traditions of Southeast Europe, the knife is known as kastura, which literally means skeleton. Balkan witches actually use 3 different types of knives. The first group are the knives that are kept in the house for everyday use. The second group consists of knives that are bought for use in rituals. The third group, the most important, are actually witches' knives. They are among the rare items for Balkan witches that must be consecrated. When it comes to knives or daggers, regardless of the shape or size, several traditions say it should be new. Many choose to make their own or at least personalize purchased ones by carving or drawing on them. Some traditions require the knife be made on the day and hour of Jupiter with the crescent moon. If it must be bought, it should be bought at the same time. If the knife is to be used for sacrificial reasons, it may be required to be made on a Tuesday, the day of Mars, preferably on the new moon. In many traditional witchcraft practices, the knife handle must be black or not have a handle at all, such as with the witches of the territory of Montenegro, eastern Serbia, and Herzegovina. The athame is a double-edged dull ritual knife used by Wiccans and ceremonial magicians. This knife is derived from a black-handled ritual knife from the Key of Solomon grimoire. Generally speaking, the athame should have a black handle and be about 5 or 6 inches long. The Luciferian athame is used during works of self-illumination and of transformative magic. For Luciferians, the athame is considered different from the black-hilted knife. The Luciferian black-hilted knife is a specific knife used when performing rites of sorcery and goetic magic. For Luciferians, athames can be purchased, but should be consecrated and should never be shared. If it's made, it should be made in the hour of Mercury, when in the sign of the Ram, or Scorpio, and when the moon is waning. For Wiccans and ceremonial magicians, the athame is used for commanding and manipulating power, but doesn't actually cut anything on this physical plane. The bowline is a knife curved like a sickle. This knife is purposefully sharp and has a white handle. For practices that use bowlines, these are used for preparatory cutting or engraving, or for anything that needs to be ritually dug, engraved, cut, or pierced within this physical realm. So this would be things such as harvesting herbs, wands, or plants, inscribing candles, cutting cords, and so on. It still shouldn't be used for mundane things not related to your practice. The sword is a tool of command and a weapon of analysis, destruction, and dispersion of energies. It's used in spell work and in purification rituals. In ceremonial magic practices, the sword is usually blunt and not used to actually cut anything. In draconian magic, it should be sharp enough to cut the flesh and draw blood needed in rituals. The sword is less commonly used in traditional witchcraft and folk magic, but it still may be seen being used in group rituals and workings. Its size, style, and length are generally a personal choice. Just be sure you can easily handle the sword that you choose. In ancient times, the sword was associated with fire from heaven, the lightning flash that comes to earth as a thunderbolt, and symbolizes spiritual illumination. For magical purposes, the ritual sword has a phallic, fire, and solar symbolism. It can be used for marking a circle on the ground. It's also used to subdue lesser spirits or elementals that may be invoked into the circle. The sword can also banish any unwanted spiritual visitors and can direct your power in cursing workings or rituals. When using swords, they're usually plunged blade tip down into the earth at the end. This returns the energy that's been raised back into the earth. For Irish practitioners specifically, the sword is seen as the Sword of Light, one of the 4 hallows of the Tuatha De Danann, one of the great ancient tribes of Ireland and people of the goddess Danu. Depending on the source, they are portrayed in mythology as either deities, fairies, or magicians. The 4 hallows consist of the first hallow, the Leah foil, or Stone of Destiny. This represents sovereignty and the goddess of sovereignty, and gives the right to rule with the expectation that one rules justly. The second hallow is the Spear of Lu, or the Invincible Spear. This represents the strategy and discipline of the warrior and tells us to fight with honor and courage and noble goals. The third hallow is the Sword of Nuada, or the Sword of Light. It represents the power of the king and the sacrifice of leadership, and calls on leaders to exercise authority not for self-gain, but for the good of the community and everyone. The fourth hallow is the Cauldron of Dagda, or the Cauldron of Plenty. This represents hospitality towards our families and our guests, and calls us to receive hospitality with gratitude and return it with generosity. In addition to the traditional uses of blades in magical practice, there are many other uses that a blade can be used for. Here are a few of those that you may want to give a try. Hang an old knife or sword on the front or back door and surround it with a wreath of bay leaves to protect against a magical attack. For someone in pain, put a knife under the bed to cut the pain. Before going to bed, fill a cauldron or old iron pot with water and place it inside near the front or back door of the house. Take a sharp knife, place it pointing downward into the water, saying, "Into the water I place this blade to guard against the thief in shade. May no flesh nor astral shall enter this place wherein I dwell." In the morning, remove the knife, wipe the blade dry, and put it away. And without touching it, pour the water outside or down the drain and put the cauldron or pot away. For talking stones, stones are struck with knives to produce sound, which can be used to induce a trance-like state. High vibration stones are best for this. Hold the stone and strike it lightly with a knife blade. Try this with different stones and knives to hear the different sounds they make. Choose the one you think makes the best sound, and in a candlelit room or wherever you feel comfortable, strike the rock and listen to the sound. Use whatever rhythm you like and let the sounds and rhythms put you into a relaxed, drowsy state. When you get to that point, this is a good time to perform divinations or meditation.
I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a little bit about using blades of any kind in your practice. If you use a blade, we'd love to hear how you use them in your practice, so tell us in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for tuning in and watching, and until next time, we will see you on the next video.